Hello and welcome to this video where we're going to be finishing off the Newsreader. If you haven't watched the first two videos, which is this one here, where we just basically hit the hackernews API and we use just like React style components, React testing library, all that stuff. You want to check out the first video and the second video. The second video, we build the GraphQL server using Apollo Server 2. We use Jest for snapshot testing, doing black box tests, all that good stuff. And these two here, the two of the three, this being the third of this particular series. So you'll want to watch this video basically to finish this series. And what we're going to be doing, we're going to be hitting a GraphQL API and basically bringing back all the articles. So we're going to be doing a lot of refactoring. We're going to be ripping out Axios, a ton of stuff that we implemented on the first one. But this is the final video to show how we can use GraphQL. We're going to be using Apollo and we're going to be using Apollo hooks, and we can basically strip out a bunch of tests as well. But anyways, if you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's going to be a lot more videos coming like this one, looking at React, JavaScript, and some real life videos. So yeah, let's just begin. I've fired up the first particular video code that we built, which is just this hacker news stories, and you can scroll and you can get new stories. It's using an infinite scroll with debounce, all that good stuff. But what I want to do, I want to start modifying the first part of the series. So in here, this is the second part, the GraphQL bit, so we need to start this. If you haven't seen this, I'll just fire this up quick. Let's full screen this. Basically, this is just a nice, simple GraphQL server that gives us everything we need to hit this API. And then in our data sources, we're hitting the Hacker News and the New York Times. So, and click off this. We don't need that anymore. I do believe we should have a VSCode open. I think this is it. Here we are. So let's begin. First things first, we can start looking in here, seeing what we need, seeing what we don't need. Do we need a service worker? Probably not, so we can start chipping away. So the first few minutes of this video, we're going to be doing a bunch of refactoring. One thing that I do want in here is some ESLint and Prettier config, and we'll set that up shortly. One thing you'll note here is that a lot of the stuff comes down to stories and stories container. That's going to be changing to article. We're going to be changing that to article. Let's go ahead and create a new folder in here for GraphQL. That's going to house our GraphQL fixtures, which are basically just variables that we use. So you'll have something. Let me see. You'll have like pretty much this is what we're going to build, and we're going to shove it in a folder in here. I'll explain that as we go on. Let's have a look now. Whilst we get started, there is one thing I want to do. Don't worry about that service worker. Most likely it's looking for it in here. We can delete that, unregister. That should work again. Let's go on GitHub, and there's a nice, let's jump back, let's say Newsreader first. Go to start. If you don't have this, definitely check it out. It's ESLint, Prettier, Airbnb, React. It's a nice configuration. You just basically type this in, and I've got a link to a ZSH keyword that allows me just to install it. So I can set install ESLint, and then it'll give me some options. So I'm using Yarn. Which ESLint will say JSON, we'll set 80 for that. ES5, and it'll just get us a nice Prettier and ESLint config that we can work with. Basically, by me running that command in there, it's just this line here, and it'll give you the exact same. I go for the JSON, the 80 character width, I think it's character or length of the line, I can't quite remember, and then ES5, and then you'll get this. It's quite nice. There's a few things in there that you'll want to modify, and you'll get two files actually in a second here. I'll show you what you can put in there in a second. Let's just, whilst that's installing, let's start ripping this out, shall we? So components, we can change this to article article.js. And I just think it's a bit more generic whilst when we're using article as opposed to story. So let's go ahead and remove this ESLint role. We don't need that. Whilst we're here, just pretty much grab everything that says story. And I'm holding down Control D and it's selected everything. So you can do article and it'll replace absolutely everything. Be careful of this one here though, because it's not case sensitive. So it's replaced something what we're basically asking for, but nevertheless it doesn't really matter because we're not even going to be using this. We are going to be getting rid of that, but right now let's not use that. To begin, we don't need the use effects because we're not watching for the articles anymore. We're just going to pass down an article from the main source. So bear with me while we do this. We start stripping stuff out, so like use state, use effects, that can all go. We're going to keep memo in here, but let's go ahead and get rid of that. And you'll see why. It's like when you've got a GraphQL handling all this stuff, you don't need like the majority of everything that we originally built. So let's just get rid of that for now as well. We're not going to check if there's an article. We don't really care. Let's say we're going to pass down an article. And what's weird about this, I don't know if I've actually done this right. I'm passing down memo, but what I'm passing down here is an article. So the thing is, I don't know if it'll be checking for the object reference. Maybe someone can take a look at that. But if it's checking for the object reference, would that not be changing each time? I haven't really looked into it. It's probably worth looking into. Let's change that to article. Article as well. That's good. We don't have to do a check here. I'll get rid of that. Yep. Okay, that's fine. It's going to give me some. That basically means that the ESLint's working now, and the prettier config should be there. So if we look, yep, they are there. There's a few things in here that I basically just get from other projects really. So let's have a look. So I don't like having all these red squiggly lines. So I prefer default export. Yeah. You know, I don't really care about default exports or all these rules that that has been set. So what you can do to actually remove that, let me pull up another file that I have. See, I'll pull up. So here we are now, yeah, back to the ESLint config. I'm just going to paste over this, it's essentially the same, but I've just got rid of all these warnings, and you can do that yourself. So if you type like default in here, preferred default, require default props, so that's not the one. Preferred default export, yeah, just set that to 0 and you'll get rid of that annoyance and give that a save. I'll save that. And there we are, get rid of all those red squiggly lines. And if you want to take this and steal it, like as you begin, there's a link in the description for the GitHub repo of this. So go ahead and get that. Moving on, let's take a look at the main aspect of what's going to be changing here. So it is this stories container. No longer is it called stories container, it's called articles container. So, and we're no longer going to be importing a story, we're going to be importing an article. There's a few things in here that we don't need anymore, such as use effect and use state. Articles not exported from here, defined but never used. Oh no, that's fine. This here, again, anything with stories, let's just go ahead and change that to articles. And if you do get some errors, just go ahead and check out the repo, because I have started stripping away a lot of stuff in here that we don't need now that we're using GraphQL as our middleware essentially. So here again, stories container, just go ahead, remove that, not remove it, but just change it. And you'll see here, be careful when you're doing a mass selection, because it will select everything regardless if it's case sensitive or not. So here, what we want to do, instead of having story IDs, because we don't really care about hitting the API once to get all the story IDs, it's just like not in our interest to do that anymore. So essentially we're going to be rewriting this, and it's not just hackernews stories anymore. We're going to call it new stories, because we're getting it from 2 APIs. So like we don't really care about that. Even what's going on here, our stories container, we need to shut down articles. So that should work. Wrapper doesn't exist. Yeah, that's no surprise there. So let's go into styles, because there's going to be a ton of stuff in styles that well, needs renaming. So let's go ahead and let's call this articles. Likewise with this one, we'll call this article, not articles. So just keep an eye out for that. And if we look down here, stories, it's going to go to articles. And if you haven't seen style components before, like I am assuming you've watched the first two videos on this, because if not, it's going to be quite it's going to be quite hard for you to follow along. So let's have a look. Articles container, articles container, articles container. Does that exist? Not found. Let's have a look. Containers. Yeah, we need to change that. Articles container. Stories container wrapper. Let's just mark that, and we'll go ahead and say articles container wrapper. That's good. Story IDs doesn't exist anymore, and when we're looking at the container and we're pulling out get story IDs from the hackernews API, we don't ever need that. So like when we're looking down here at the services, basically we can just go ahead and delete that, because that no longer do we need it. Likewise with a selector, because we can handle all that stuff in GraphQL. We need to fire that server up shortly, so we can actually do a check that we map time. I'm going to keep that in there for now, but that's fine. But yeah, we need to fire up that server, because what I want to do, I want to hit the GraphQL endpoint that I built in the tutorial video too. Constants, containers, that's fine. I'm just seeing if there's anything else in here. The tests are going to be well, we'll get to those later. It's gonna be pretty nice, because we can get rid of the majority of stuff. So now this is probably like breaking anyhow, so let's just get rid of this for now. I think that looks good. What's this complaining about? Let's keep that. Articles container, is that there yet? It's saying it's not defined. Okay, so let's just jump back. Articles container, it's definitely defined. Probably my I am on a slow laptop. Next, let's go ahead and just close this down. There's not too much that we need in the components now. So we're pulling this out. We don't need the service anymore. This sort of stuff doesn't exist yet. So it doesn't exist. We haven't renamed it. So like down here, story title. Again, just go ahead and do a mass replace here. And we'll change that to article. And if I just, like a quick trick, if you do get these errors and your laptop's going slow like mine, just go ahead and delete it and undo, and you'll get the you'll get rid of the errors. So it looks pretty good right now. This file's not complaining. Let's see here. Yeah, that's not complaining anymore, using that little trick. Let's see here. Let's just get rid of this. Delete. Put it back in. Yep, doesn't complain. Perfect. So I think we're pretty much good now. Let's see here. What's this saying? Articles container cannot be resolved. Newsreader first. Containers.js. That definitely exists. Articles container. Yeah, right now, I mean, let's not worry about that for a second. I don't even know what it's complaining about. We can get rid of this. Let's go out and go into Newsreader GraphQL. And what we want to do, we want to start this up, and you should be able to hit this at 4,000 in a second. Can I resolve ESLint loader? Just restart this. Let's get rid of this. Probably should get rid of that because it's got some information in. But anyways, yeah, this is, let's click a new one, new tab. This is resolving now. But yeah, the GraphQL is working because we've got the playground. So Apollo Server 2's up, which is nice. Yarn upgrade, no, don't care about. There we are. We're back to normal. So we have no articles, but that's good because if we click in the docs in here, we can get all the articles. Which is nice because that's kind of what we want. So should we just test this now? Go away. Hopefully you can see this better. And we'll just say query get all articles, and you can do all articles tab, Option space on a Mac, and I'm not too sure on Windows, maybe Control. And if you just keep clicking Option space, you'll get Option space enter, and you'll get all the fields. Time. Oops. Source. Play. There we are, we've got all the articles, and there's a lot, so we need to handle those. But we can click off this now, we know it works, like we're getting the data back, which is perfect. News stories, okay, that needs to calm down, that's quite big. So, what we need now is, let's close all this stuff. We've done a bit of refactoring, but we'll continue on. We need to take a look at the package.json, see what sort of stuff I guess we need to install at this point and what we can actually rip out, because we don't no longer, we don't need Axios. Is Axios? Yeah, it's laying around in here. So we can get rid of Axios, that's gone. We do need, there's quite a few things we need here actually. Let's just take a look if there's anything else I can get rid of. Selectors, did we get rid of that? Yeah, we did. Mappers, no, that's fine. Service worker, we'll get rid of that. I think it's looking pretty good at this point. And like I say, if you get lost, just go ahead and check out the GitHub section below. You shouldn't be getting lost. I know there's a lot of refactoring, but and I know if you haven't done this project, and there's a lot of people wanting this last bit for the GraphQL part, so you can hook up the front end. Right. So we've got the server running. Let's make that bigger. Let's go ahead. Newsreader first. A few things you want to install here, and I did have a few problems getting this to install, so if you do, drop a comment and I'll do my best. Also, remember to join the Discord. That's where we help each other with tutorials, code, React, JavaScript, all that stuff, GraphQL. So what you want is you do want, let's see here, I think yarn add, I think it's Apollo React hooks. Yeah, that should be it. Let's see. So we need to install Apollo React hooks because we're going to be using hooks in this from Apollo. So we can use stuff like use query and nice hooks like that allow us to basically do the most minimal action to get the most maximum output. So next what we need is yarn add, I think it's, yeah, Apollo React hooks. I think that, I'm pretty sure that's the one. It should be the one. Yeah, I'm definitely sure. Then I think you need boost, so add Apollo boost. You can basically do it like this actually, if you just want to type this out, that'll help. And I think you can also you need GraphQL tag. So if we do 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 4 things we need. So instead of doing those previous 2 that I just did, just go ahead and copy this. I'll just leave it on the screen for a second. And if you want to know what these do, or if you don't have any understanding of Apollo, please go read the documentation, because like I said, there's an assumption that you know a bit of this stuff going into this tutorial, because it is a long one. So let's install all those things now, and I don't know how long it's going to take. Let's see. So anyhow, whilst that's installing, oh, it's done, perfect. There's a few things that we need to start hooking into now. So we've got Apollo Boost, React Hooks, GraphQL Tag. And now we want to go into our container and see if we can pull out some data. So like in our containers here, we want to do import use query. This is coming from Apollo / React hooks. Perfect. Right, this is where it gets juicy, and this is what I love, that you can use hooks now in Apollo. And we're going to say, okay, with GraphQL you'll always get returned like a data object. So we want to say data, and we're going to destructure out all articles, because in our GraphQL series we called the resolver all articles. So set all articles equals, and we'll give it a default empty array. So that means when we give it a default empty array, when it's doing the map over, it's not going to fail because we have a default empty array. If you get something back like null, or maybe, I don't know, say it comes back as undefined or whatever it may be, some weird type, and it bombs out the application because you didn't set a default. So always set a default if depending on what you're expecting, depending if you're looping. But in this scenario, I definitely have to have a default. And then if data comes back and there's nothing in there, I'm just going to say, okay, let's give me an empty object, and that's just like good practice that I find useful. And we'll say use query. And what does use query take? Well, use query takes a GraphQL fragment, essentially. In our case, it's not a fragment, it's actually a full query, but you can use, you can send in, pretty much it's a GraphQL tag, like constant. That's kind of the best way to put it. And we'll say get all articles, and we haven't made get all articles yet, so go in here in the GraphQL folder, and what we want to call this, we're going to say get all articles. And it really depends on what well, we can just call this .js, because that's pretty much all it is. And what you want to do, you want to import the GraphQL tag so we can put together a GraphQL query, and then just say export const get all articles, and then it's basically a template string. That's all it is. And then we'll say, like what we just did in Apollo back then, well, the Apollo, what was it, Playground. What we just did in Playground is what we're just going to do in here now. I'm going to call this get all articles, and then I'm going to say all articles, give me the ID, the title, the author, the URL, the time, the source. And maybe you're looking at it thinking, oh, well, where's all this data coming from? It comes from the second video. This is what we called these fields. So now we've got that, it's going to make a query off to GraphQL when this gets imported inside use articles right there. So let's take a look at importing this, because we have to get this get all articles right. So we have to do import all articles, get all articles from, we'll say GraphQL, get all articles, and there we are. That's pretty much that's pretty much our articles container at this point. We do have to do some sort of check though, like down here. So let's just say, like, if we have all articles, because we can access this array here. So all articles, if it's true, because I'm not going to be using optional chaining here, I'm just going to say, okay, all articles. If it comes back true for, we'll say all articles.slice, because we're still going to be using the use infinite scroll, and then we'll put a count on there. Just to make this a bit easier to read, I'm going to just pull this up here, indent that, and I'll say map. So we're going to slice whatever, I don't know, 0 to 30, the first article set, so we don't want to load everything in there, right? And then we'll say article. We'll pass it a key of article.id, because we need a key because it's React, and we're going to be looping over these. And then what we're going to do is going to pass the entire article down. And I'll save that. And that right there is our articles container. And that's pretty much it. It's so much cleaner. There's no use effect. There's no use state. We're not managing anything of that. It's all done in the middleware, which is GraphQL. Next, we need to take a look at the article, because the article right now doesn't accept it accepts an article. And actually, this might work. Let's just go take a look. Can I find client? Oh, my bad. One thing we didn't do, we didn't set the initial setup, because we can't just import Apollo and expect it to work, right? There's one thing we actually have to do. So go into app, and then up here, import Apollo client from Apollo Boost, and then we'll do import. We need the Apollo provider. Import Apollo provider from Apollo, and we'll say React hooks. That looks good. And again, if you haven't come across like Apollo before, I know some people are new here. Some people have no JS experience. Some people have got lots of experience. Basically, it's just giving us a component that we can pass in a client to. That client just being a new object with a URL that's going to hit, that URL being our GraphQL server. So we need some sort of connection to that. Let's just get rid of that. Actually, I'm just going to rewrite this so it's just a standard function. I think it's cleaner. I will say const client equal new Apollo client. And then we're going to pass it a URI of HTTP. This is where our GraphQL endpoint lives, right? We go back to, so look there, look, it's living here. So we need to give it that information to say, look, go connect to that. Save that, and then we need to return, like I said, Apollo provider. There it is. It's just a component that we passed the client into, and that's pretty much it. Inside there, basically that's the context, right? That's the context provider that is sitting at the top level of our application, And to get access to all, well, the provider in this sense that's connected to the GraphQL client has to be at the top level, and then we just put in our articles container. And with a bit of luck, that might just work. And there we are, it's coming straight from GraphQL, our GraphQL server that is. And if you open up the network, let's have a look. So it should be, I think it should be connecting up to localhost, and then we'll check, have a look in here. Oops, what's this? Pull this out. Let's see what's going on here. What response did we get? Oh, here we are. So this is our network call. So you can see it's hitting the request URL that we just gave it, localhost 4000, status 200. So that was okay. It's sending a post method. Let's see what it sends in the request headers. Basically just, you know, the normal stuff. And look, we've got the operation name. So in our, let's see, GraphQL, get all articles. See that get all articles there? The reason I gave it an operation name is because it's a lot easier to debug when it has an operation name. It's no variables, but, you know, let's have a look at the preview as to what got returned. So we got 0 to 999, well, all the articles basically. You can see you got the New York Times ones and you have the HackerNews ones, which is really good. So we have the data, and there it is, it's working. And we've stripped a bunch of stuff out, but it's like now working, right? You know, and that's what we actually wanted, to be able to use Apollo and our GraphQL server. So it's much cleaner as well. There's not much else going on. One thing you'll have to note is there's probably a bunch of tests that are now failing. I'll just close these down. So we've got down to this part here where we've got rid of, you know, the services, we've got rid of the selectors. That all that stuff can be handled in GraphQL at this point. But what you want to do with your GraphQL middleware is keep it nice and thin. You don't want much in there. Maybe you're doing some selections so everything's got the same. Like the reason we're using GraphQL is because we're hitting multiple APIs, right? But when you look in the article and it's saying article.by, well, we don't know if, say, the New York Times endpoint comes back with the, as opposed to by for the author, it might say written _ by. So what we do, we take that column and we basically transform it to be by the author, so we know what particular. So if we got 10 APIs, it's all got the same column. That's one of the benefits of GraphQL. So if you have a name and, you know, say you're hitting 10 different APIs in different languages and they've all got different column names, well, transform them all to one, and then you can, you know, map through that data. You don't want to be having to be checking for different author columns, but that's what GraphQL is good for as well. One thing I just spotted in here, just make sure these are lowercase, these data test IDs. And I'm sure we'll find out like very shortly if everything's working when I run these tests. Fixtures, I don't think, let's have a look. We're going to have to update these actually for the tests, because now we're going to be getting, you know, certain stuff back from GraphQL that doesn't match this. So I think at this point we're good though. I think now we're getting the articles back, we're getting 500, we've still got that stuff set. One thing you may want to do, I don't think there's anything in here that you have to do actually. It looks all good to me. Let's close this down, and this is where you know, we can seal our fate on the tests, which is always fun, right? So let's get a coverage report as well. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Let's go ahead. I wish the terminal didn't increase in size when I increase the font size. That just makes no sense to me. We should have some failing tests there, which is what we expect at this point. And there's 4 tests. To be honest, you don't even need 4 tests now for this. You can probably get away with just having 1, which is what I'm going to try. There we are. Look, the services don't exist anymore, which is good. And that's expected. That's expected. So we've got failing tests. Okay, so what do we need to do? Well, let's jump in here. Actually, did that even give us a coverage report? Let's have a look. Whilst that runs... Oh no, is it? Let's see. Yarn test. Give me a coverage. Okay, so now we've got a we've definitely got 4 failing tests, which is expected. So all those tests are failing. It's not just a test itself; it's a test suite. So we've got 4 failing test suites. So now let's open up the coverage and just see what damage we've done. Yeah, everything is messed up at this point. So how do we fix this? Well, going to test. First things first, There's a bunch of these tests that we don't need anymore. Like, there's no reason for us to be. Just look how much easier this is to test now. We've got GraphQL handling most of this. We don't need to test the app.spec, and we don't have to do any sort of mocking. So we don't have to mock no implementation. We don't have to, mock the services or the infinite scroll, anything like this. So you know what? Goodbye to app.spec. See you never. Next, what we need, one thing I'm going to keep is a storage container, because in my eyes, look, all I'm looking for is that it renders the stories, and that's it. That's all I care about. So I can get rid of that. We don't even have to test. Like, why are we testing? I know I did this to show you this, but like, why was I demonstrating somewhat of a bad practice to test Axios and what comes back from Axios? So that can go. Storage container, that can be renamed to articles container. So we've got one test, and people may think this is bad, right? Oh, you've only got one test. How can you get any sort of confidence in your code? Well, we're only rendering articles, and if they come back with what I'm asking for, it's fine. We don't need this here either, because services is gone. Use infinite scroll. We're going to keep that because we're just going to leave it to be mocked here. I think you can just do that. That should be fine. Story increment, that's fine. We do have to. Well, this is where we're going to have to pretty much import mocked provider from Apollo. Oh, we haven't installed it. React testing. So we're going to install a mocked provider. So I think on the app.js, you got the Apollo provider, and we don't want to be using that, right? We want to be mocking that, so we can pass it some data, a mock client and all that good stuff, so that we can give it a fixture file, and we can ask for data, and does it come back in a fixture file? And we'll get into that shortly. Before each, let's go ahead and just type before each, and we're just going to put cleanup. You can actually set cleanup to be done in your Jest setup file, I think, so you don't have to do this every time. And then just reset all mocks. I want to reset all mocks before each one. So that's been mocked. That's perfect. No longer do we need to mock the services, so that can go. Renders a story container with a story. Renders the articles container with. Renders the. Let's do articles container with articles, because that's what we expect, right? Don't need that. We'd have to mock that no more. Are we using stories still up here? No, we are not. So let's just put that in the render. I think that looks good. At this point, what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to go up here and install the React testing. So let's do yarn add Apollo. Was it Apollo? What was we asking for there? Yeah, Apollo React testing, and then we'll say /d because it's going to be a dev dependency. So that should install. Whilst that's installing, let's just quickly take a look here what we've got going on. So basically, when we're testing Apollo, right, on the client, we don't want to be using that Apollo provider. And the way to get around that is by using the mocked provider that is being given to us here. Cool, that's done. So we have to pass it some sort of mock. And, Apollo do a great job of demonstrating this in the testing page of the website. But to summarize, we'll do a new constant with all articles mocks, which is an array, and we're going to give it a payload. So we're going to give it a request, which has a query of get all articles. And then we're going to have a result. And that result is going to come back with a data object, and it always comes back with a data object. And I'm just going to spread all articles in there. All articles doesn't exist right now, but that's just going to be a fixture file with some dummy articles in. And that's going to be pretty much it. So we can update that fixture. So where's the fixtures here? So yeah, we don't even need these here no more. So what we actually just need from fixtures is all articles and then no articles, and that's basically what we want to test. Does it work with one or two? So jump into fixtures. We're going to update the fixtures now. I think we can keep this actually. Yeah, let's just keep this for now. This object here. But let's go ahead and say export const all articles, because that's what we want to pass back in our payload. And we say all articles, which is an array, right? Because that's what we did in the GraphQL section of this course. And we're going to say, actually, can I just paste this in here? And then I'm just going to update by to author. I think it's author. Let's see. Is it author? We'll soon find out. I thought it was. Oh no, is it? Let's see. Confused. Yeah, I thought it was author. Well, let's just see. Put that to by. Time's fine. Title's fine. Source is going to be hackernews. And if you don't get this right, and actually let's just take that out because I want to show you when it fails. So export const no articles, which is just going to be all articles as an empty array. And this will whinge at you, and there's a few things it's going to whinge at you about, but I want to show you why it whinges at you. Not just like, you know, get it right, because I want to get some stuff wrong in here to show you what exactly happens. So right down here we've got the articles container. Let's just strip that out, and we need to put in mocked provider, and we have to pass it our mocks, which is this here, right? All article mocks, because we're going to query for all the articles, and we want it to return all the articles, which just gave us, which is this. So we should expect to see this, right? So we should expect to see that data on the page. So let's just say all articles mocks, close that, pass in our articles container. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So yeah, we're still going to expect to see Google gets tarnished, because that's the title, so that should be on the page. Story by, that should now be article author, I believe. Let's just double check that. Oh no, it's not. Okay, that's going to fail, which is good. We'll say author. Let's just see. Do you know when we was running the file? Oh yeah, the by's not working. That is why. That is why. Okay. Oops. So article shouldn't be by. It should be by. It should be the author. And I think if we do, let's change that to author. That looks good. I can't really think of any other things. Time looks fine to me. Author, article title. Yeah. Okay. We'll soon figure out when the tests start failing, and that's what's good about testing. To some extent, there's not. Well, I won't get into the testing part, but let's just run this test. Yarn test. Give me some coverage. Let's see if we at least get in something, right? And we should hit a lot of this stuff just by running this one test over the articles container, because that pretty much covers everything. Yes, this is what I wanted. You'll see this quite often, which is nice. Oh, we got some coverage. Perfect. So we got, obviously you got it on the constants, right? Containers, see in there. Yeah, it's not rendering out any articles. That's expected, I guess. Is it? I don't know. You know what? I don't even see why we are testing this file. Like, I know some people test the app.js, but I'm going to get rid of it. I see. Don't give me any more confidence to test that. So what's it saying here? It's saying unable to find an element with the select hacking new stories. Ah, that makes sense, because it's called new stories now. So let's just get rid of that. Maybe that'll give us a. Let's have a look. Let's rerun this. Maybe it'll update our coverage now, and we should get a passing test, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Oops. No passing test. What? It's broken up by multiple elements. Yeah, I understand that. When it says that, or when it's like, oh, it's been broken up by multiple elements, it's when you've got obviously different semantic tags. And so like article, so we're looking for in there tarnish Google responds, right? And that should be in the title, which is here. So like the style component has, well, it should just be this. So why is it not getting that? That's weird. I don't know why that's not getting that. That's strange. Google target responds. I'd expected it to get it, to be honest. Let's just move on a second. I'm not too sure why that's not working. Let's just take one more look. What's it saying? Is it even? It's not even giving me the articles at the minute though. That's what's a bit worrying. Is it worrying? Let's just see. Let's see. So that's what we're expecting, anyways, right? And I guess. Well, if you don't know what wait for element is, I know we used it before. It's just going to wait until like the DOM updates, and you can also use like I think you can. There's another pretty much exact same syntax as like wait. I think just for another tick on the event loop. But let me just go over this. So we've got all the articles, which seems fine to me on the mocks. One way to actually debug this, I guess. Actually, I don't even think. Just throw debug in there. Will that debug get run there in time? Let's see. Close that coverage, no need. This seems to work fine. Oh, I know why. Okay, missing field. Let's go back. So, do you know when I was like just a minute ago, let's see the errors in here? Well, if we go into the fixture, there's this thing, this concept called type name. And also we need to get the source in there, just make sure it's hackernews, which is just this pretty much. It's just inside the object, and it's basically, I won't get into it too much, but when you're, say you've got like a GraphQL object, right? Well, that's coming back. So like in here with an array of objects coming back, we keep track of them by using a type name. You can switch this off. I don't recommend turning them off. There's some special like utility as to what it's used for. I can't fully remember what it was used for, but I definitely know it's needed. And if you don't put that in there, you will get those yellow warnings. Let's see. And even like now, like I've used type names and I've come across this error so many times. Yeah, missing author. So we need to change this field to author, which is nice. So it tells you that you're missing these fields and like by doesn't exist. But yeah, like even I've used that so many times I've forgotten. Like you cannot remember absolutely everything if you're a developer, so don't like get into the idea that you can remember absolutely everything. Perfect, there we go, got ya. So it's received by, and that says to me that this here has to be updated because it's it's giving us a data from the DOM, and it's saying, oh yeah, look, I found by, and you're expecting author. So cool, let's go ahead and we don't need that debug anymore. Where did that go to? Get rid of that. Get rid of that debug. Let's rerun that. We should get a passing test hopefully. Come on, yep, boom. There we are, the coverage is like, it's going way up. And there's a few things I want to get rid of in the coverage that I don't get any sort of confidence from. In particular, the app.js file. And I'm not going to be covering the app.js file. And if some people want to cover it, fair enough, go ahead and do that. But I just don't see any use in it. All I'm doing is just mocking something out. And trying to mock that using Apollo is really tedious. So let's go back, rerun this coverage. Let's see. There we are, 100%. Perfect. What are the branches on there? Yeah, 100. So yeah, we've got 100% coverage just by that one test file. So much nicer. And yeah, you should probably, check some more scenarios, but I don't want to be going over absolutely everything in this video series because it's not a testing channel, right? I want to show you how to write code and test it as minimal as possible, but with the maximum output. But so here now we've got one with articles. So let's just see if we can, well, not let's just see. Let's go ahead and copy this massive test block here. And then I'll paste it there. Renders the article. Actually, it's not going to render because we don't have articles. And do you remember in here when we did all articles? If there's no articles, it's not going to render. So it just said does not render articles when no articles. When I don't know, there is no articles, I guess. Okay, right, we're getting there. There's a lot of refactoring here, but you can see if we did this from the beginning, right, it would be so much nicer, as opposed to like using a bunch of, you know, Axios and then using async, await, promise, .then, all this stuff. There's just no point doing it. Let's just put GraphQL and totally forget about all that other stuff. Change this data here because we're expecting no articles to come back, so we can just put that in the result. All articles mocks is now no articles mocks. And then pretty much what you got to do by here, down here, you know that's going to be there, right? Because new stories is not a part of this condition here. It's always going to get rendered. You just got to change these to be false because we're not expecting it to be there anymore. And you can't really do this statement here now where it's like query by test ID text content to equal, because it's not going to exist. So what you want to do is query by text ID, and as opposed to checking for the, you know, the text, because we know it's not going to be there, let's just check if it's, well, not there whatsoever. So we set to be false, and that should hopefully do it. And we've got two tests, happy path and an unhappy path. It's somewhat of an unhappy path. It's kind of in the medium because we have no articles, but you should have articles generally if you're running this. So something's gone wrong if you don't have articles. Okay, we have a failing test. Get by text. Okay, that has to be updated with React testing library. Get by text is an assumption that it's, you know, somewhat going to be there, right? So to make this work, you do query by text. So there's different like conditions with get by text and query by text. Generally, it comes down to what's the output going to be in the console. Is it going to throw an error? How's it going to act? So I know if I query by text and it's going to be, say, falsy, it's not going to like bomb. It's not going to bomb out on the console. It's just going to go ahead and run. So that should work now, hopefully. Let's see. Let's see, come on. What? Is this, why is this giving me this? Query by text to be falsy. Okay, that's what I expect. Never find element with the text tarnished. Why, oh, hold up, why is it still running get by text? What did I just changed? Wait, what test is failing here? Does not run in the articles when there's no articles. Get by text. You know what? It'd help if I click save. This is why you shouldn't be doing video tutorials at 1:30 in the morning, people. 2 tests passing 100%. Jobs are good and we are done. We are done. So yeah, I'm not too sure how long this video is, but you know, we've got a working application that's sitting behind a GraphQL data source. We've got style components, we just tested it. You know, we've got a Apollo provider up top here, bunch of stuff. We even let's have a look at this article. Is it article? No, it's container. We're using use query, Apollo hooks, which is so nice, and just look how easy it is. Use query and you just pass in your GraphQL query, and that's it. So much nicer, so much easier to test. And you know, maybe it's my opinion, but I'd shove most stuff behind GraphQL at this point and just not use REST on the front end where you're using like Axios and maybe Fetch. I just like to put it behind GraphQL. It's much nicer. And then you can do your selectors, modifications, transformations, all that good stuff on in the middleware, which is GraphQL. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, we did a lot of refactoring, renamed some stuff from story to article. We did it with styles, got rid of selectors, got rid of services, updated the tests. We got rid of 3 tests, which is huge. We did the ESLint, the prettier. This is all going to be in the description on a GitHub repo, so feel free to check it out. Hopefully, you know, you got learned some stuff from this. Hopefully you really enjoy using hooks as well from Apollo, 'cause Apollo is quite nice. Documentation lacks sometimes though. Apart from that though, it's all good. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. Feel free to join the Discord as well, which is in the description. We talk tech, we talk about, well, pretty much everything. We just have a good time and we help each other out. It's really good. And please subscribe. Like, I enjoy doing these videos and it's always nice to hear what you guys think in regards to the videos, how I can improve, what you'd like to see. So subscribe, join in the community, you know, drop a comment. Please like the video. The liking and the subscribing and comments, all that good stuff really helps, you know, with the YouTube algorithm, I guess. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I shall see you in the next one.